Welcome to Breaking the Standard, where we are closing the communication and knowledge gap for the small business government contracting industry. I'm Aubrey Gainford, and today we have very special guest with us, Jaime Gracia. Jaime, welcome.
Hi, Aubrey. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I have wanted to chat with you for a long time, but if you could just introduce yourself for our listeners, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks. So, Jaime Gracia, currently Director of Corporate Affairs for the Wolverine Group. We're a woman-owned small business based here in DC that does really interesting services. We do strategic communications and information operations using open source analysis. Um, we work with intelligence and DoD. We're also looking to get into different federal civilian markets. That's my wife's company. She's had it for some time now. So I had recently left government, and I'm working with her, and I'm continuing to do what I do, which is my background in procurement and technology. And I've been doing that for about 25 years now. Started off in the Navy, and then transitioned to industry. Worked with some large companies, worked with some small companies, and then I started my own company, doing basically three things: just standard acquisition and project management support to federal agencies, doing training, and then also business to government business development, exclusively for small businesses that really need the help, but also doing just quite a bit of services along the boards of, how does this crazy thing that we call government contracting work? So it's always a fun adventure. I mean, that has never stopped. I got a little bit frustrated in industry because I kept just seeing the same mistakes over and over in procurement, because some of my clients, I mean, I had contracting officer clients, I had senior executive clients, right, all across the board, and there's just consistent themes of issues. And man, if I can just get my hand on the wheel, maybe I can change it from the inside. So I was doing it in reverse, because most people spend 20, 30 years in government and then come out in industry. I did it in reverse. So I started off at DHS. I helped create the contracting office for the National Risk Management Center at CISA, which was new at the time. They've grown like gangbusters, which is great to see. And then I transitioned over to IRS, to Treasury, and I helped stand up their procurement innovation branch, which was like Pill Plus, because they were actually doing a lot of the contracting using the pilot IRS methodology that they developed, which is excellent. And then also helping set up their kind of liaison office between program office and contracting, their acquisition planning branch, which has been combined into a couple other things, which was nice to see. And then finally, I was at State Department for a couple of years, being a senior executive there in procurement, working quite a few different strategic programs, such as acquisition innovation advocate, the industry liaison, category management, and doing quite a bit of vendor management and just small business interfacing, to really help understand how not only State Department does business, which is really interesting, but also how just federal government works. And then I retired at the end of January from government, and then kind of back to square one in industry, at TWG here at the Wolverine Group. And I'm really excited because I've got a lot of things in the fire that I'm working on. I'm still doing training, still working with government agencies on just how to improve things. I'm also putting together a joint venture recently with some partners to really focus on small business government contracting. And it's more of less to do business development, but more about education, and also as a liaison between industry, teaming, matchmaking, and really helping make those connections, which are critical, because probably the biggest thing that is a weakness for small businesses is access, right, to either teaming partners or government agencies. So we want to try to help alleviate some of those pressures by making those introductions and helping them get those accesses, and also to try to figure out how best to position themselves to strategically align with partners to win business as well. So hopefully that'll be rolling out this summer. And then, yeah, just continuing to move forward and just working with the small business community and helping everyone be successful.
Well, it's very clear to say that you've got a lot of experience in many different buckets, which I love and I appreciate, and thank you for your service. Um, So when I got the chance to chat with you and pick your brain a little bit, there were so many things that I wanted to talk to you about. But I think one of the things that we agreed on, which I think is going to be a really interesting conversation, is talking about um, small businesses and how to interpret the data. So today we're going to talk about um, how they don't really know how to interpret it, or how they're improperly using it. And when we say data, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, but we're going to mainly be referring to, spending. So FPDS and USA spending are going to be probably a couple of things that we're going to talk about. But if you're not familiar with FPDS, um, the government is required to log the majority of their actions, and that's how Congress tracks it. And that's what I know. But I'm really curious to hear from Jaime all of the other pieces that I don't know, because I'm required to do that as part of my job so that they can track that. But I don't really know how industry uses that. And but there's so much, because we all have to track that across the entire government. That's a lot. So I guess my first question is where can small businesses find like these types of resources and data? And then I guess, is there something I missed in terms of the other types of data that they could find or use? Or because I could be very wrong. But I'm going to stop talking because I want to hear what you have to say.
No, you're spot on. I mean, the Federal Procurement Data System (NG), right? That is the system of record for government to for transparency, right? To catalog all procurement activities across the federal government. Um, for small businesses, especially when you're starting out, right? It's important to understand like where you're going to play, for a lack of a better term. And that's kind of step one. I mean, assuming that you are registered in SAM, right, the System for Reward Management, you have a unique ID number, right, your UAE, which replaced the DUNS number, right? You've got a cage code, right? You're what I like to call contract ready,
Mm.
to be able to start getting awards. It's okay, now what do I do? A lot of small businesses get bad information, or they don't do enough research and education by understanding how they need to not only target, but really micro target where they're going to approach their business development activities. Because ultimately, what you want to do is develop a pipeline for opportunities, right? And John Ferry, I John. I think he was on your show.
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of John. His LinkedIn is great because he's very open and transparent.
Hmm.
He rubs people the wrong way sometimes, and I think that's a good thing, because there's a lot of transparency and some honest discussions that need to happen that he's not afraid to do. So I really appreciate that about him. But I say that specifically because he had been talking about right, how to sell to the federal government with IT, and also how to use data. And his comments are great, because a lot of people, they think that they don't micro target, they do the other way, which is like, oh, okay, so they're I bought like an AI tool, or I just like hired some intern or something to find me information. So we were talking about some company, not John, but some company said, okay, so here's currently 841 R5s across the entire spectrum. So the advice was to, use AI tools to create a standard RFI template response, and then respond to everything under the sun as a shotgun approach to basically see what sticks against the wall and see if you get traction. And I was left a little dumbfounded, because that's such bad advice, and it's quite the opposite. And that's where the data comes in, because not only do you need to target specific agencies, you need to target specific organizations and even specific offices within those organizations, and do your homework and figure out what it is, because ultimately it's not only what I sell, but who's buying it, right? And that's where you have to reverse engineer all the publicly available data, because you have to think about the end game, right? And reverse engineer it. What am I trying to accomplish? All right, I'm trying to sell a widget. So who's buying my widget, right? How are they buying my widget? How much are these widgets cost? So I can create a proper pricing structure, right? This is all important information, and I understand the desire to kind of get in the game. But I was at an NCMA meeting last night for the new Metro Maryland DC chapter, um, or excuse me, Metro Maryland NCMA chapter, and the speaker, AJ Johnson, who is the deputy director of the SBO for the Army,
Mhm.
said something really profound, which is right. Don't just automatically start thinking about the dollars, right, and start making money, because you need to take a step back and think about performing a mission, right? And you need to be able to do that well. And then once you start building trust and a reputation and obviously past performance, then the dollars will come. And it was such great advice. And I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because a lot of small businesses, certainly when they're starting out, don't think about that, right? It's all about growth, growth, growth. So they're all busy chasing everything under the sun without a real strategic focus of what they should be chasing and where, as it relates to their capabilities and their ability to perform, right? Another thing where small businesses get in trouble is oh yeah, I can do this work, right? I can do it great, blah, blah, blah. And then someone takes a risk on them,
Mm.
and then they get awarded a contract, and then they can't perform on it, right? Because they don't have the capacity, or they over promised and under delivered, right? That happens all the time, and that can be a death knell right when you're starting off. So you have to be very strategic about it. So the data that's publicly available, right? Getting back to FPDS, I personally tell people starting off to stay away from FPDS. And the reason I say that is because all that information feeds into USA spending. So go to USA Spending. It's much user friendly. You can run better reports. You can just organize the information better. I mean, as you know, FPDS is not user. It's about the opposite, right? It's not
Mm-mm.
user friendly. There's
Nope.
tons of fields. You have no idea what they are, like contracting office ID. Okay, what does that tell me? Like, I don't understand any of this stuff. I just want to know like who's buying what. Plus, right, you get into trouble like when you see like, is this a mod? Is this how negative dollars? Like, what does that mean, right? It can get super confusing.
Right,
Uh,
right.
so I just tell people, let's stick to USA spending, right? Get comfortable with how to use that, and then once you get more advanced and you're using publicly available information to properly build pipelines, to now build relationships, which is the critical, most important part of this business, right? If you want to go now to FPDS to kind of fine tune things and start using some fields in there to help you understand like where the money's coming from, who's obligating the money, okay, that's great. But for now, just stick to USA spending, and then that will be more helpful for you as you go through your journey of being a government contractor. Because I tell people starting off like, oh yeah, I've been in the commercial world for X number of years and I'm doing great, I'm killing it, but I want to get into government contracting, can you help me? Yeah, I'm like, all right, well, let's kind of put cards on the table so you understand what you're getting into. And I've had this conversation, I don't know how many times or the years, and everybody either looks at me like I've got lobsters coming out of my ears, or they immediately get it. And that's the folks that I want to work with, because I tell
Mm.
people, look, government contracting is a blood sport. Okay, it's not for the faint of heart. It's ultra, ultra competitive. I mean, it's nothing like you've seen before. Normal timelines for award can be anywhere from 12 to 18 months for your first award. That's a long time, and people don't get that because they may be thinking quarter to quarter, like in the commercial world, and that doesn't work. So, right, you have to outlay quite a bit, right, to win that first contract in investment in B&P dollars and marketing and everything else, and people don't get that, right? They'll fall under the spell of some company that says, oh, I can get you a GSA schedule, and then the money's going to start rolling in. I mean, I get those phone calls 3 times a day, like, oh, we've got, we want to give you government contracts, like it's like on the corner being handed out like candy. And it's unfortunate, right, that a lot of companies don't know any better. right? They spend tons of money on these things, and then they're like, hey, where's my contracts, right? I paid you $7,500 to get this GSA schedule, and that took forever. It took 9 months, and then where's my contracts? What's going on? Like, I'm going to sue you and things like that. So it gets pretty ugly. And I'm just like, look, before you do all that stuff, you don't even know who you're going to target. You don't even know if the ultimate target uses GSA schedules, right? They may use other vehicles. So yeah, it's all there, right? In the publicly available information so that you can get to the point and micro target where to focus your BD efforts and how, right? And that's the beauty of USA spending because it tells you exactly, it builds a roadmap for you, right? Where you need to go so that you can start building partnerships. A lot of small businesses also think that, right? Oh, I got to look for my competitors, right? Who's my competitor? Very important information, a competitive analysis for sure. But when you're just starting out, right, don't look at someone as a competitor. Think of someone as an ally, right?
Mm.
Because when you're looking at potential partnerships, right, you're trying to find gaps in capability that you can fill for an opportunity or partnerships to go to market so that you can have a unified front, right? If you can't lick them, join them kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I always advise small businesses is the most important thing is you have to start building a past performance profile, right? You have to start getting subcontracts so that you can demonstrate execution of a requirement. And that's really critical. And that's another big thing that I always recommend for publicly available information, right? Because it tells you who's winning the award, right? Who's winning the monies for these contracts so that you can say, oh, I can totally do that. But this company just won this award. So let me reach out to this company and see if there's something that I might be able to do, right? Are you looking for different teaming partners, different capabilities to bring to your clients? Or are there other opportunities that are outside this one that I might be able to help you with? Oh, by the way, right, I know of an opportunity as well that I'd love to team with you on. That's the most effective way of getting a partnership. And quite frankly, that's recommended because certainly a lot of like big companies, right, they've got small business offices and they actually do training themselves of like, hey, don't come to me and say, oh, I got an 8A and I, sell technology infrastructure because the answer is, okay, well, take a line, take a number because the line is 300 deep and maybe I'll get to you, but quite honestly, I don't think I'm going to, right? If you come to a company and say, hey, I'm an 8A, right? Or whatever. And I've got this opportunity in hand, right? Now you're talking because now you can find people to help you fulfill that because the government can't get to you because you don't have the right socioeconomic designations or you don't have vehicles and things like that. And that's really critical as well that I always tell small businesses is like forget starting your kind of elevator pitch with, oh, I'm an 8A or I'm a woman owned or whatever the designation is, right? It's what's in it for me and why do I care? You have to answer those two questions with everything. And that's why the publicly available information is so critical because it helps you shape that narrative.
So of course you go to the dinner meeting that I don't go to
Right.
because I went to the other two. I didn't go last night, so um, but it looked like it was a really good
Yeah,
panel.
great
So
event. Yeah, I'm totally bummed because I was supposed to go to the DC chapter meeting on
yeah.
Wednesday. There's their 60th and it's Fellows Night, and I'm actually my fellow with DC, and
Mm,
I always love going to that event. But
hmm.
like my health's been just kind of iffy lately, so I couldn't go on Wednesday. But I was able
Right.
to grunge it out and make it to the Thursday meeting, which was good.
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying that chapter and what they're up to. So I'm looking forward to they won't have one in July because of World Congress, but
Right.
I'm looking forward to August. But you touched on a lot of really interesting points, but relationships, I agree, are important because a lot of times if a company has an opportunity, they might reach to a company they already know or a small business that they've interacted with to say, I have the perfect small business that could do this, or they have this specific niche, they'd be great for this, or they're a great fit, let me call them. So knowing who people are in addition to what they can do is really, really important in, the GovCon arena. The GSA piece, I was seriously having the exact same conversation with someone the other day. that companies have this like carrot to get on GSA, and they have this vision that they're going to start making all this money, and then they don't. It's like this false hope that they think they're going to start rolling in it, and it unfortunately it doesn't work like that. There are, certain requirements for people to go to GSA, and yes, you can pull a couple of vendors from GSA, but if you're not one of those few people that do whatever they're looking to purchase, you're not going to be, even looked at. So it's
Right.
just, it's unfortunate. um I have a question about USA spending because I'm not super familiar with it compared to FPDS. I do agree. I don't like it, and I have to fill it out when I'm getting ready to award something, and I can't tell you how many times I get an error or, an issue with something before I have to release it. But you said you can like tailor it to be able to do things. Can you like set up a search? You know how like in SAM you can have like NAICS code searches and stuff. Can you do something similar to that, or tailor how you want to filter or run the information? Is that something that's doable in USA spending?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, if you can allow me to share my screen, why don't we just go to USA Spending and kind of
Sure.
do a quick 101?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm big on show me, don't tell me.
No, I like that too. When it's possible.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
As I tell, as I always tell vendors that are trying to like get information about demos, right? Show me, don't tell me.
Let me see. I think I should be able to allow you to do this. Let me see. Da. All right. Make co-host. Okay, there we go. That's good to know though that it's tailorable, because I think that that's the most important thing, especially when you're trying to mess around with what are you looking for and what information are you trying to, filter through. And there's
Right.
so much information out there that I think it could be really overwhelming for small businesses if they don't know how to look through that.
Okay, so I think I am sharing. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. So this is the homepage for USA Spending, usaspending.gov.
Hmm.
I, I'm a very cynical person by nature, but like this website is really well done.
Mm.
Because, and again, that's why I say don't go to FPDS because it's a bit of a nightmare. So go to USA Spending, and then click search for awards, because this is where you start, like to answer your question.
Mm.
So right, and like I said, right, get contract ready, right? So that also very important, as you know, like probably the most important thing that you need to know is like where do I fit into the market, right? And what are my products and services? And as we know, there's two ways to do that, right? The North American Industrial Classification Code, the NAICS,
Mm.
the six-digit code for your product or services, or your product or service code, your PSC. You can
Hmm.
do searches that way. NAICS tends to be more of um, the important code, if you will, for matching and cataloging products and services. So you need to know what your primary NAICS code is, and let's just kind of pick the grab bag of like administrative professional services for 541611. So
Hmm.
you can pick that, and then you want to filter by what you're looking for, right? If you've got specific keyword searches, you can do that here. Time periods, I do recommend, like for starters, is to don't do too much at once, right? Because there's an enormous amount of data in here, as you can see, going back to FY 2008. um, I always recommend like just start with like the last 3 years, and then you can do maybe some trend analysis based on what it is that you're looking for, because you will see as you do the trend analysis that certain agencies and organizations tend to buy the same things over and over, right? And that's what you're looking for. Again, who's buying what? So you can select those filters here, right? You can do quite a bit of filtering. You should contracts is what we're going to be looking at. I mean, it also has grant information here as well, in addition to the vehicles as well. That's very important, because a lot of the buying that government is doing is on vehicles, and that's going to only increase as category management continues to move forward more aggressively, which is, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with category management. Certainly running the category management program at State Department, I was very concerned, but cognizant of the fact that yes, small businesses, if you believe the data that's coming out, everybody's meeting their goals for small businesses. However, the number of companies that are winning awards has dropped precipitously. So there's an erosion of the industrial base because companies are choosing either to get out of the market, they're being acquired, or they're having to kind of make the decisions of which vehicle am I going to get, right? And that's very difficult because we mentioned GSA schedules as probably the most common one. But right, there's Oasis, there's Alliant, there's
Oh yeah.
specific ones for industry, right? It can be kind of endless. So again, that's why it's important to understand where your product or services is being bought off what vehicle. Because again, for teaming partners, right? Oh, I found a perfect partner who's on that vehicle and also has a footprint into this agency, right? Perfect partnership uh, target. So you can approach them with like, hey, what's in it for me? What do I care? And here's why you should listen, right? Of course, agency is also important because again, you don't want the shotgun approach, right? You want to micro target where you're approaching it. So you want to put the agency information here. If you are looking for targets, right, you can put the name of the company or the UEI if you have it. And then you can really do lots of great filterings, right? Set aside is also important if you have that designation. And then you can do your searches, and what's really important as it's starting to look at the information is to start now digging through it to kind of see what's going on, right? So right off the bat, and this is why I love USA Spending, because the dashboards give you very important information about what it is that you're looking for, right? So no surprise here, right? DoD, the biggest agency, the biggest awardee of 541611. But what's really interesting is, USAID, right? The Agency for International Development, right? So, what's kind of going on here. So you can do more micro filtering by the agency. It gives you information about the agency. It gives you information about, right, all these total obligations and awards, right? It gives you very important information about what that agency is, what they're doing, right? Again, micro targeting. What is the actual organization and what is the amount of money that they're doing for obligations, and continuing to just drill down, right? Okay, oh, here, international disaster. Okay, that's exactly what I was doing because I have a company, right? I was working with FEMA, right? I think I can also do international awards. So I'm going to keep drilling down so I can now take a look at the type of awards, right? Who's getting the awards? I can click on contracts now and get a lot more information about the contract itself, right? Who's the awardee, the number of transactions for that organization. Because again, what you're trying to do is micro target where you're going to build your pipeline, right? And this is all very important information. And I don't know if you've tried to do this in FPDS, but you have to be like a jujitsu master with Excel pivot tables to be able to do anything close to this, because this does it very quickly and easily. And it's really important, again, to show you exactly where you need to target your business development efforts. Now,
Wow.
ultimately, what we want to do is take a look at where the actual money is coming in. And then let's go back to the home page here. Sorry.
And I'll link this website in the show notes because this is the first time I'm seeing this, but this is really interesting because it's showing like it shows, geography, and then it's showing by agency how much they spent,
Right.
and then as you go down, it's showing the number of like transactions or contract actions. So It's really interesting because then you can like break it down from there to see where they each went, which I mean, this is probably the smartest way to use the data because then if you are just starting out and you're looking at what you want to focus on, you could see if there was an agency that spent more on that or focused more on that specifically than others, and then be able to branch out from there. So this is really cool. I've never seen this before.
Yeah, and what's also interesting, no surprises here, right, is the when the money's being spent, right? You know, our fourth quarter feeding frenzy, right? That's obviously our end of year funds. That's also important to see because now you can take a look at what's actually being obligated here and say, okay, they're spending their money in the fourth quarter like I expected, right? So all this lead up here, right? A lot of people think, oh, only the fourth quarter is when spending happens in the government. Somehow, like 1102s just take like 3 quarters off, and there's by the pool or something, which is obviously not true. But right, all of this building now leads up to interesting decisions that you have to make, right? Because a lot of people, certainly this time of year, are going to be looking for end of year funds, right, to
Hmm.
spend that. So, that's why it's important to really build networks and to build relationships because it's important marketing to reach out to your customers and your prospects and your partners saying, hey, I'm here. I can do this. I've done it before, right? If you're looking to spend end of year funds, right, I'm open for business, right? That's very important, especially for if you do have the socioeconomic designations where you can do set asides, sole source set asides, right? 8A, right? The A and C, all right. For whatever reason, nobody does women-owned small business, but it's permissible,
Hmm.
right? Those types of things. So it really helps you decide like where you're going to go. But probably the most important data, right, is the actual contract information itself because it tells you who's winning the awards, how much, and you can really drill down to see exactly what's all going on, right? Again, to figure out how to use this data, right? Here's the company, right? Gives you information about where they are so you can do more research about that company, right? If they're a potential target for you, where they're actually getting information from, what are they doing, right? What is the actual programs that this money is going to and for what, right?
Oh.
That's all there, like we saw before, right? All the obligations, all the transaction history, right? Sub awards, right? Who are they subbing to? That's also important because, like, oh, yeah, I totally am like partner. I can totally do what Logistico does at a better and cheaper price. So I can now approach you and saying, hey, I'd be a great partner for you. And here's why, right? Again, what's in it for me and why do I care? So this is a wealth of information, free, right? Readily available. And there's tons of information on training, right? You can go to YouTube, lots of different, the SBA in particular has lots of training programs on how to use USA spending, right? Just basically how to better do what we've talked about and also the former PTAX, right now the Apex offices, right? That's what they do is help companies get into government contracting and be successful. So they've got a lot of training programs as well on how to effectively use USA spending. Or you can just find me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to help you as well. But at the end of the day, right, this is all information that is readily available, information that's free, and information that's really critical before you start making phone calls and sending out those blind emails saying, hey, I'd love to talk, can I have 15 minutes of your time to talk to you about my capability?
Hmm.
And if you do have a moment to respond, the proper response is like, why? Like, what do I care? I don't care if you're an 8A, you've got all this other stuff. Like, what's in it for me? Why do I care? Sorry to keep harping on that, but it's such an important thing that a lot of people forget because they approach the market and potential buyers the wrong way, which is like, you know, here's what you can do for me, right? Not here's what I can do for you, right? I know here's your mission. Here's some problems that you are struggling with. Here's how I can fill that gap. Here's how what I can do for you, right? Can I talk to you more in depth about this issue? Because I'd ultimately like to talk to this organization and this point of contact, right? when I would get emails like that, and they were unfortunately quite rare, as industry liaison at State Department, right? I'm like, absolutely, right? I would call that company and say, hey, this is Jaime Gracia. I'm industry liaison at the Department of State. Just got your email. I'd love to chat with you about it. And like, there's always like a stunned silence, like, oh my God, somebody actually called me back, right? Because a lot of these emails just go into a black hole. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, unfortunately, those emails were rare, but I love them because it just signals a lot, right? That you've done your homework. You understand my mission, you understand my agency. You have a better, you've done all this work, right? You have a better sense of where you fit, and you're telling me how you're going to help me execute my mission, like where my problems are, and how your capability will be able to help me complete the mission, right? Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you because I would, the most important thing for me when I was industry liaison, right? Yeah, I want to help you get that first meeting, but the most important for me was helping you get to the second meeting, right? So I would coach you, I'd prepare you, and many times people would just fall flat on their face because they're too busy, trying to sell licenses and like demonstrate a capability, but not tailoring their approach to the agency, its mission, and what they're trying to execute, which is very important information. And all this data here in USA spending can open a lot of doors for you. It certainly provides you a roadmap on how best be successful, not only to get into the market, but how to grow and find opportunities for more growth through partnerships and by building relationships with the right people at the right organizations.
No, this is great. I'm going to link this in the show notes, and I will try to save and share the video part with the screen sharing, because usually I don't share the video part, but I think it's really helpful to see it. So you've offered a lot of really great advice. There are two questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show. So the first one is if there was any advice that you would give to the small business government contracting industry. So small businesses currently in, or small businesses that are looking to join the GovCon space, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I kind of talked about it already, which is do your homework, right? Again, this is a ridiculously competitive market, and people are going to eat your lunch, right? You have to work harder than the next person, right? You have to do your homework. And again, you're so focused on growth, like, oh, I've got the best widget out there. Well, do you really? Because like everybody's saying that. And I've seen some great widgets. So you really need to differentiate yourself. And that's
Mhm.
through education, right? And there's just so many resources like we've talked about that are free, right? Apex, your OSDBUs, your industry liaisons, right? All this publicly available information that we went over today, right? It's very critical for you to educate yourself, so that you come across as somebody that I want to do business with, right? Again, when you're telling me what's in it for me and why do I care, and you're not approaching me with like, oh, I've got a great license, I'm trying to ram licenses down your throat, right? It's a totally different market. And when I was in government, I'd say this comment quite often with a similar question at events and things, which is right, think about your BD differently, right? Again, don't try to just ram licenses down my throats for you software sellers. It's more about really change management, right? Because
Mhm.
if you're selling software, there's very little thought about how the customer will use your software, how they're going to have adoption of your software, right? It's an entire change management process. And a lot of software companies don't think about that because they're just like, well, I'm in the business of software and selling licenses to my software. Like how the government uses my tool, that's up to them. Or worse, like that's none of my business, or I don't care, right? I did my job, I got my commission, and that's all that matters. And it's a very short-sighted approach. And a couple companies that I talked to who understood what I was saying executed really, really poorly just because they didn't have the capability and they didn't make the right investments into that capability. So they kind of fell flat on their face. But I do give them credit for at least understanding that's relationship building, right? It's not just, okay, here's my capability, here's my tool. You bought 10 licenses, awesome. Like, I'm going to go get 10 more, right? How am I using your tool? Am I using it effectively? Right? How do I do BPR using your tool so I can effectively use the tool for better government management? Isn't that why we're all in this business? Right? Again, it's change management, and a lot of people just aren't thinking about that. So, really, the kind of overarching advice is, cliche, think outside the box,
Mhm.
but it's true, right? It's think about the approach differently that your competitors aren't. It's like, oh, I do a demo of my presentation, like, okay, great, who can I talk to? Well, that's a waste of time, right? If you show me, hey, so I know you've got this problem. I've created some synthetic information, or I use publicly information, or public data rather, to do the demo, so I can show you results that matter to you, right? That's a much more powerful presentation. It's a much more powerful approach, right? Here's how my tool solves your problem. That's where you should be when you approach the market, whether it be a government buyer or a potential partner. That's the correct approach that I wish more businesses, especially smalls, would think about as they get into the market or look to expand their footprint across government contracting.
Perfect. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. It's just Jaime Gracia. Hopefully my information will be
Yep.
on the podcast as well.
Mhm.
Right, just shoot me a note. We'll get in touch via email. So I'm not hard to find. I'm still around, pretty active, and I want to help. Right, I want to help you be successful. So don't reach out. Excuse me, please reach out. Don't
Yeah.
hesitate to reach out, I should say, because yeah, I mean, I've been in this game for a long time, and I know I've got a lot to offer. And quite honestly, I'm at the point now where I'm trying to help others be successful. Certainly, if I had the opportunities to win FTE on contracts, I'm not going to say no, but I'm really focused on helping others be successful so that I can kind of enjoy the fruits of everybody's labor. And that's really my focus right now.
I will make sure to link Jaime's information in the show notes as well. And if there's anything that we talked about today that you have additional questions for me or for Jaime, please email me. Or if there's a topic that I haven't covered yet and you're dying to hear me talk about it, please shoot me an email at breakingthestandard@gmail.com and make sure to go follow us on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Aubrey.